Hi, everyone. You are now tuning into Conversations with Filmmakers podcast. We present our final discussion with our special guest, director, producer, and director of photography, also known as DP, Mr. Chandler Kauffman. We hope you enjoy part 2 of our discussion. Thank you for joining us today.
Are there any projects that are out right now that have inspired you and you would have loved to work on? I
Oh
know
my
for me,
God.
there are a slew of them because I'm in like action adventure, blowing shit up, excuse my language. Like if
Yeah.
you could dive off of a building with a parachute, I would love to be that person standing on the rooftop, like, go, go, go. And I know that you mentioned like comedy and the documentary stuff. So just give us some insight on what like
I
really
mean,
inspires you that
there's so much. That's the problem nowadays, right? Is that there's so much
yeah,
good stuff out there, and like, how, do we all have time to like watch it? But um,
top tier. Like, if was
wow.
there anything that was
Well,
like jaw
over the last
dropping, made your mouth open wide, like what?
one of the things that really rocked me this year, because I've done episodic stuff of my own. I made a TV pilot, which you've seen.
Let the
Um,
audience know what the name of that is,
oh,
please.
sure. It's called Karl Manhair, Postal Inspector. You can
I
find it
love
at
that.
www.karlmanhair.com. And it's a dark comedy about a down and out postal inspector who gets wrapped up in a very bizarre investigation. And the inspiration came from my own experiences actually with having a postal inspector investigate my missing mail back in the day.
I love that.
So
And that's very big nowadays too, with like the detective story and trying to figure out the crime.
oh
And
yeah, yeah.
yours totes the line of that. That pilot that you shot was amazing. So,
Oh,
guys,
thank
one
you.
more time, tell them how to spell it as well.
Sure. Oh
Not
yeah,
postal
yeah. It's
inspector, but that first and last name. Just
Carl with a K. It's Karl Manhair,
love it.
karlmanhair.com. And the project is called Karl Manhair Postal Inspector.
I love
Um,
that. It sounds
thank
criminal.
you. Yeah, a bit zany, a bit wacko, but hopefully has some heart to it. That's what I wanted to kind of bring to it.
Mhm.
And but to back to your question, something that really blew me away in the last like year was Severance on Apple.
Mm,
That show is so uh like in the most brilliant way possible, strange and offbeat,
mhm,
combined with for any like I've definitely done my time like working like in sort of corporate environments, and I'm sure
mhm.
everyone, I know you have, I'm sure like everyone will sooner or later who listens to this podcast.
Yes.
It really summarized, as maybe like a sort of creative person or just someone who's not in tune with those environments as much, how
Mhm.
like disorienting and disjointed they can be. But it's also just a really profound story about what we do, and you know memory and the choices we make about what we want to experience in life and not experience. But it initially grabbed me because I shot a project for NVIDIA at the
Mhm.
location that's supposed to be the corporation they all work for, which is in Homedale, New Jersey. So I'd seen the trailer and I was like, oh my, because when we were on this shoot for NVIDIA, it's the old Bell Labs at Homedale, New Jersey, which are historic,
Oh
and
wow.
also really strange looking, like super kind of sci-fi brutalist architecture, really cool.
Mhm.
And when we were shooting for NVIDIA there, NVIDIA has a lab there. The whole crew was like, oh my God, how come nobody's shooting a sci-fi movie at this location? This is like the most amazing location.
Really? And
And
then
then
Severance
Severance
come
is
out
it.
and you're like,
Yes. So that was like my first sign that it was, going to be a good show. But I've been wanting to get more into the episodic space for a while now, and obviously with all the strikes going on right now, that's a bit on pause.
mhm,
But I love basically the serialized content, basically being able to tell a story over like what used to be 100 hours, maybe it's less now with streamers, but really get to like build out your characters and
mhm.
really build your world. And you know, like, and I love feature length films as well, of course, but you get so much more time with episodic, you know. And
Mm.
you so I mean, there's so much amazing stuff being made, both episodic and films, but like you know, starting with like what, The Sopranos, you know, in
Oh,
the late 90s, The Wire, like
yes.
all these shows, like they just revolutionized what you could do with that amount of time as a storyteller. And so yeah, that all of that kind of stuff always blows me away and really inspires me. And then, I mean, in documentary wise, the docu series I just watched, which I turned on a lark, but was I forget exactly what it's called, but it's on Netflix about
Mhm.
Arnold Schwarzenegger's life story. Um,
Oh,
which, you know, you at first glance you would say like, yeah, it's Schwarzenegger or whatever, you know, but like
yeah, we've seen a million of these. Yeah, like that kind of thing, right?
it actually wound up being like a much more interesting portrait of to me at least, of just someone who's so profoundly driven, in a way that like few people are, and has achieved like really improbable things. Like whatever you think of his movies or bodybuilding or his time as governor, it's like this is a guy from like a small village in Austria who just like
Hmm.
took over the world. Like, how did that happen, you know? And
I know. Yeah.
um
He's come from so far. I remember watching him as like a little kid, and
yeah,
like back in the 80s and stuff. And it's like this guy has been going at it for a while and been really laser focused, on like building
yeah,
up his career.
And now, a word from one of our sponsors. After starting my podcast, I needed to hire the pros to market the content. Are you looking for digital success? Look no further. World Boss HQ is your strategic partner. Their experts turn your vision into a digital masterpiece. From stunning websites to powerful marketing, they've got you covered. Startups or established businesses, they are your one stop solution. Visit worldbosshq.com. That is WORLDBOSSHQ.com, and unleash your potential today. World Boss HQ Digital Marketing. Your online empire awaits. We are excited to bring you this world exclusive teaser from Bad Rabbit Pictures and Movie Pods. They are presented Age of Prophecy, a sci-fi fantasy podcast done in the style of the radio dramas of yesteryear. Coming soon to all streaming platforms. Visit www.moviepods.com or www.anoukchronicles.com for all the release dates. You won't want to miss this one. Your myths were born from our history. Let's check it out.
Life. A vile, messy sequence of events before we die. All designed for something beyond us. It has to be. Or else, what's the point? You don't know me, but I know you. I am responsible for your triumphs and miseries. I am Zira and Lilzor, and to truly understand your own story, you must know mine. Your myths were born from my history.
Hi there, and welcome back to Conversations with Filmmakers podcast.
I think that is really amazing, everything that you've been giving us the insight into, especially on documentary, than the dark stuff on Apple TV with the Severance. I have seen that trailer, so it makes me want to watch it now
Oh
because
yeah,
I wasn't sure about it. I was like, what is this guy? And he's in a suit, and they have like the yellow tonality with the, like how
yeah.
hospitals are sometimes, very clean cut, neutral, and that is what I've seen from the trailer. But just to pivot, because this is very important, like you had mentioned, you were working remote at one time trying to produce some content. Well, not trying, you did it.
Mhm.
And then you had to travel around the country working remote. One thing I always feel like we don't talk enough about is like mental health and everything. How
Sure.
do you mentally and physically take care of yourself in such a demanding media industry? It's really important, to give that to the audience on like how do you unplug completely, or what are some of the techniques that you use?
Yeah, no, I mean that's a great topic, and I think it's something nobody really wants to talk about because it
Hmm.
feels, it's very vulnerable to get into this stuff. But it takes a lot of work, a lot of I mean, I feel like even having done this for a little while now, like I'm still reinventing how I take care of myself and how
Hmm.
I keep myself like functional and happy for my family and for myself and to be able to do the work that I want to do. Um, there's so much to it. I mean, filmmaking is very physically demanding in a lot of ways, so you need to
Hmm.
take good care of yourself, hopefully eat healthy and exercise as much as you can around, if you're working on long, grueling days, obviously that's really hard, but people do it. Um, I think I'm really, really lucky to have a really core group of friends who I've known forever, who have been my rock through all the ups and downs. They've
Yeah.
been there for the good stuff, but they've been there for like the really bad stuff. And that's
Hmm.
really like, and my wife and my family as well, of course, have always been rocks for me. So I think um, it goes back to what we were saying before about this being like, we're social creatures, where we need other people. And, you being there for the people you care about is as important as them being there for you and equally rewarding in a lot of ways.
Hmm.
Um, so I think that's been a big part of it. Mental health is, it's a struggle, it's a really hard thing in this day and age. I think no matter what you do for a living, I mean, I have friends that do all sorts of other stuff for a living, and this is definitely a topic we talk about a lot is,
Hmm.
I think something about the pandemic and what we all sort of collectively went through maybe opened up the conversation a little bit more, which is a good
Hmm.
thing. Um, I'm actually sort of in the foothills of working on a documentary about mental health stuff and some advances going on in treatments for of conditions like depression, anxiety, and PTSD. I'm still, don't have a ton to say about the project right now because it's still in the building
Yeah.
phases. But so it's something that's really important to me and really a story that I really want to tell because I feel like we're just sort of starting to talk about it, and there's still
Hmm.
all this like shame and stigma mixed up around all this stuff, which is absolutely ridiculous. I mean, like this is our
Brains.
yeah, it's our brains, our hearts, our souls, and
Hmm.
um
And
but
even still, when you see those people in the news, like maybe a celebrity or an artist or something, and they're like getting hospitalized for exhaustion,
yeah,
and you're like, how do you get to that point? But it's like it's so much to do. How do you draw back from that and take back your time? Even if it's
yeah,
not, you being bipolar or PTSD or something like that, it's just how do you put those parameters in place? I know for me, it's like once I get home, I really don't talk to anybody and my phone goes on airplane mode. Like
mhm,
not do not disturb, it goes on airplane mode just so I could get my sleep. If there's anybody that wants to talk to me, I'll just let them know, listen, I'll call you in the morning. But I
yeah,
found myself just not doing that before. And I was just so tired. And I think over this pandemic, I literally had to tell my friends, I'm exhausted. And just saying that simply, because sometimes we keep it internal, right?
Yeah.
Just saying it simply, I'm exhausted.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
they all joined around me, like gave me that virtual hug from a distance.
Well, that's
It
what you
was like,
need.
yeah, but you need that. So I would say transparency. So it's good that you also have your own village and family that is willing to, do that for you.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, we do it for each other, it's
Mhm.
everybody needs that support. I mean, everybody that I know, at least. Maybe there's people out there that are just like, super solid on their own, and that's awesome. I'm jealous, but like, but
Jealous.
it is like getting mixed up into the film TV industrial complex, and
Yeah, yes.
it will take all of your time
Mhm.
if it can. And I mean, and so many careers are like that too. So we're not alone in that, but ours is maybe a little bit unique in that it's like we're trying to do something creative, but it's also like a huge industry with a lot of business interests and huge amount of moving parts and a lot of complicated logistical things going on constantly. So you can
Highly
really get swallowed up
competitive
into
as
it.
well.
Oh, it's
Highly
super competitive.
competitive. You have millions of dollars flowing out there, and we know what that attracts, right? It's the negative and the positive, right?
Yeah.
So you have those cutthroat people that are willing to do whatever it takes for the money, and then you have exceptional people like yourself that's willing not to do that, you know?
Now, an exciting message from our sponsors. When I decided to launch this podcast, I had the tools to find talent and market the show, but needed a skilled editor to bring it all to life. That's when I turned to Jacob Daly at redhawk.uk. His collaborative approach and swift revisions transformed my vision into reality. Redhawk.uk, your one-stop solution for creative content services. Reach out to them. Now, a word from another of our supporting sponsors, that is Realm IQ, a new AI consultancy started by film marketing veteran Kurt Doty, who has built an international team of AI mentors to help AI change management for your business. Go to www.curtdoty.co/Realm IQ. Smart people for smart adoption, creating smart worlds. Realm IQ. Book your AI workshop today. Adopt or perish. Hi there, and welcome back to Conversations with Filmmakers podcast.
The whole thing of making a living doing this is sort of its own topic that because it's when you start off it's easy to get sucked into working for cheap. I mean, back in my day it was free, but I think people have maybe moved away from that, hopefully, I hope. But you do have to pay your dues, you do have to learn your craft, you do have to like
Mhm.
intern and all that kind of stuff. But then you've got to make this a sustainable way to make a living if you want to have a life, and if you want to save for retirement, and if you want, all the things. And obviously health insurance is such a ridiculous situation in our country. And so all of those things really have to play into it. And I mean, I think like that's, at least with not to put too much of a timestamp on this interview, but with the strikes going on now, which I suspect will go on for a while, that's
Mhm.
really so much of what's at stake is the future of this industry and the future of people, the ability of people to do this as their living, which
Mhm.
means kind of to do it at all because it's so all consuming. You can't, I mean, I guess there's ways to do it part-time, but I've never kind of figured that out,
Mhm.
and
I always imagine, yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
no, I was just going to say that it's I see people saying like, oh, actors are overpaid, or like, don't writers have it easy? And it's like, if you dig deeper, you'll find out the truth of these things, that these are like extremely hardworking people. Like the I've worked with like some pretty big actors along the way, and a lot of, even if they weren't big name actors, like amazing actors who were amazing at their craft and dedicated. And a lot of them in certain ways they're artists, but they're also like technicians, like us on the other side of the camera are, because there's all like this repetitiveness and roteness to what they have to do, but they have to like bring this life to it on every single take, every single time. You know, they have to get up like at 5 a.m. like the rest of our 5 a.m. if we're lucky, if not earlier. You
Mm-hmm.
know, like I mean, everybody, it's like it's such a all what we do is such a huge undertaking. And I think it's like really important to acknowledge that we like if we're going to do this, and if these bigger companies are going to make money off of our our efforts, everyone deserves to be able to make a living wage and take care of themselves and their families.
Mm-hmm.
uh, and yeah, I mean, I think, and that's sort of what I see at stake with these strikes.
Yeah, absolutely. And I totally agree with you. I'm hopeful it doesn't keep churning on, but at least we know like whatever contract gets put into place, it will be for some time. You know,
Yeah.
it was over a decade with the last terms, so hopefully it'll be the same. But like you said, it's ever changing. But on a more positive note, I have one more question for
Yeah,
you,
sure. Yeah.
and that is all. And then you can be free. And I'm hoping that all of your answers was really great and informative for anybody that's listening in or looking on at this interview. So, but I want to know, when was that pivotal moment that you knew that you had gone from amateur just playing around with it to an actual professional? Like you were considering
Right.
yourself a professional within this industry, you know?
That's a good question. I guess so for me it's a little different because I was super lucky, and I started like, even though I wasn't making much money, I was like working right out of school.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but I think when things sort of turned for me was when I made those eBay spec commercials, and really actually started to get hired as a creative professional. Like
Mm-hmm.
before that, what I was doing was certainly like legit work and everything, acing and gaffing and all that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but this was like that wasn't, for me, that wasn't the end game. That wasn't where I wanted to be the whole time. So for me to finally get acknowledged that someone would actually, hire me to do what I wanted to be doing, that was a big turning point. And it actually kind of happened even before I got any sort of work out of it. It was just when people started seeing what we were trying to do, and they were like started helping us to do it. It was like it was a real sign of acknowledgement that like, you know, um, whatever we're doing, people are at least responding to. And it was every step along the way as we were in pre-production, then as we were shooting, and then once we moved into post-production, and
Mm-hmm.
had help at every turn with that. And then once they went out into the world and people, started appreciating it, um, that really like signified to me that like everything I've sort of to learn, all of the crafts I've been trying to learn, the skills I've been trying to hone, it's like it's all pointed in the right direction. Like there's still a lot of work to do, and there's still tons of growth that needs to happen. And I mean, I say that from where I am now. I mean, it's an
Mm-hmm.
ever evolving practice, and ever uh,
Absolutely.
growing practice. But so yeah, that would have been, that was like maybe like 5 or 6 years after I graduated from college that happened. Um, and there's a part of me that is always trying to get that feeling back from that time, because it's that turning point was so like amazing, and like
Mm-hmm.
it just felt so everything just there's this whole thing where like you push too hard, you try too hard, you're over muscling things, it's like it doesn't feel right, blah blah blah. But then there's times you do things and you're putting your whole self into it and your whole effort, but you're not over muscling it, you're just flowing, and everything's flowing with you, and like everything's just it like you're almost thinking this seems a little bit too easy. Like I know I'm working really hard, but
Mm-hmm.
like things are coming together in a way that feels like bigger than me in a way, you know what I mean? Bigger than this project. It's just like kind of stuff's just kind of happening, and you just sort of going to be the shepherd of that thing, of keeping it going. And
Go
so
forth and be great.
yeah, and exactly. So I mean, that's like the place I always try to get back to, like that amazing sort of feeling when I can. I mean, that's not my daily existence, but that's like the sort of goal. So
And it
uh
keeps you, that sounds like it keeps you driven to keep going in this industry. you know?
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
the most important thing, is just continue to be inspired by the content being put out, the people that you meet, and all of that stuff. So
Yeah.
I always tell myself, like, as a screenwriter, I'm like the Quentin Tarantino of it. I really have to be inspired. I just don't write to write.
Yeah.
There's times where there's scenes of a film that I've come up with, or an idea that will wake me up in the middle of the night. And that's how I know I need to pivot and really focus on it. Like like sometimes people can say, "Oh, write this." And you're like, "Yeah, I'm just writing this," right? But when it's so inspiring that it will get you up out of your sleep, and like, dialogue is downloaded and all of that stuff. And I'm sure you felt that as well before. You're just like, where did that line come from? It's just like your brain is just processing. So it's exciting to hear that from
Yeah.
you as well. It's just you're chasing that adrenaline rush and nostalgia kind of thing. And that's
Yeah.
really good.
Just tapping into, it's also like a chance to like feel like you're sort of your best self when, at least for me in these situations, because I'm the most like I'm the best version of myself that I strive to be, because I'm like open and giving and honest and like more empathetic and more just more like present, in every possible way. And when you're in that place, not only do you do like I think your best work, but it's also like you're sort of harmonizing with the people you're collaborating with, and
Mhm.
you're these relationships just feel like so special and so good. And um that's really like the maybe one of the addictive things about it for me. So
Exactly. All right, well, we have come to the end of the interview. One more time, tell these people how they can find you, your content, not email or phone number, sir. You don't got to give up that information, but maybe your website or LinkedIn and
sure.
stuff, because in case anybody wants to follow up, work with this gentleman, just pick his brain about things. Not too many questions, and do not use me as a referral, because I don't know
Yeah.
you if you're listening to this. So,
Uh,
but
yeah, sure. You can find me on my website. It's chandlerkaufman.com. That's ChandlerKauffman.com.
all right. Thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it. And you guys, you have tuned into Conversations with Producers.
Thank you for having me. It was fun.
Yes, bye.
You've just tuned into an episode of Conversations with Filmmakers podcast. We'd like to thank our guests for joining us and sharing their knowledge. This has been a production of Vonti Pictures, hosted by me, Vonti McCrae, a screenwriter and producer. We'd also like to thank Bad Rabbit Pictures for the animated content and creator of upcoming podcast Age of Prophecy, along with our sponsor, redhawk.uk, with all episodes being edited by Jacob Daly, director, producer, and a man of many talents. Come back next week as this saga continues for the Conversations with Filmmakers podcast.